John thought he was doing everything right. He's a gun owner from Texas and has been collecting firearms for over a decade. In January 2025, he sold 3 guns from his personal collection at a local gun show. Nothing fancy, nothing illegal, just 3 guns he didn't shoot anymore. 2 weeks later, ATF agents knocked on his door. What made those 3 sales different from the dozens of private sales he'd done before? What changed? I'm David, and in today's video, I'm breaking down the 5 major ATF changes in 2025 that completely flipped the script on what's legal and what could land you in federal prison. And here's the thing: some of these rules made things less restrictive, while others made casual gun ownership activities a federal crime. Number 3 on this list, that's the one that caught John, and it's the one almost nobody is talking about. You need to stick around for that. By the end of this video, I'll tell you exactly what happened to John and, more importantly, how you can avoid making the same mistake he almost made. Here's why this matters more than you think. We're not talking about fines or slaps on the wrist. Federal firearms violations carry up to 5 years in prison, $250,000 in fines, and the permanent loss of your gun rights. Forever. You can't own, possess, or even be around firearms. The ATF landscape in 2025 is completely different than it was just 2 years ago. Multiple rule changes went into effect. Some came from new regulations. Others came from court reversals that undid previous rules. It's a mess. Here's what that means for you. You could have been 100% legal on December 31st, 2024, and woken up on January 1st, 2025, technically breaking federal law, without changing a single thing about what you own or how you operate. John had no idea the rules changed. He assumed what was perfectly legal in 2023 was still legal in 2025. That assumption almost cost him everything. If you own guns, sell guns, build guns, or carry guns, these changes affect you directly. And here's the confusing part. Some things got more restrictive while others actually got less restrictive. You need to know which is which. Let me walk you through all 5. Let's start with some good news for once. Remember the pistol brace chaos from 2023 and 2024? The ATF tried to reclassify millions of braced pistols as short-barreled rifles, forcing gun owners to either register them, remove the brace, or destroy them. It was a nightmare. Well, there's been a major twist. In 2024, multiple federal courts struck down the ATF's pistol brace rule, calling it arbitrary and capricious. Then in 2025, under the Trump administration, the Department of Justice actually dropped its appeal entirely. The rule is dead. What the ATF tried to classify as SBRs in 2023 and 2024 isn't automatically one anymore under federal law. So if you own a pistol with a stabilizing brace, federally speaking, you're in the clear. The rule cannot be enforced. If you registered your braced pistol as an SBR under the old rule during the amnesty period, you might be wondering what to do now. The registration still exists, but the requirement that forced you to do it is gone. Here's where it gets tricky. Some states still restrict pistol braces regardless of what federal courts say. State law can be stricter than federal law. So even though the federal rule is gone, check your state's current stance before you assume you're good to go. But here's the thing. This isn't the change that got John in trouble. Keep watching, because we're about to get into the rules that are catching people off guard. This is where things get serious, and this is where casual gun sales became a federal minefield. The ATF's final rule on who needs a federal firearms license went into effect, and it dramatically lowered the threshold for what it means to be engaged in the business of dealing firearms. Here's what it used to be. You had to be making a livelihood and profit from selling guns. That was the standard. If you were just selling a few guns here and there from your personal collection, you were fine. Not anymore. The new rule looks at the totality of circumstances. Do you buy guns with the intent to resell them? Are you making repetitive sales? Are you advertising firearms for sale online? Are you conducting sales at gun shows regularly? Any of those factors can tip you into engaged in the business territory. And if you're engaged in the business without an FFL, that's a federal felony. Here's a real scenario. Let's say you sell 2 to 3 guns a year online, maybe on Arms List or a gun forum. You list them, someone buys them, private sale, done. Under the old rules, probably fine. Under the new rules, the ATF might consider you an unlicensed dealer. And here's what makes this terrifying. There's no specific number threshold. The ATF doesn't say 5 guns a year is okay, but 6 makes you a dealer. They look at everything: your intent, how you advertise, how often you're buying and selling, whether you're making a profit. This is getting closer to John's situation, but there's more you need to know. Alright, this is the one. This is the rule change nobody saw coming, and it's the one that's catching law-abiding law-abiding gun owners completely off guard. Combined with that engaged in the business definition I just explained, online marketplace activity is now being heavily scrutinized by the ATF. And I mean heavily. Here's what happened to John. Over the course of 6 months in 2024, he listed a few guns on Arms List and in a local Facebook gun group. Nothing crazy, just guns he didn't use anymore. He sold 3 of them in January 2025. That's when the ATF came knocking. Why? Because they were tracking his posts, screenshots of his listings, timestamps, purchase records. The ATF put together a case that suggested he was engaged in the business of dealing firearms without a license. John wasn't running a gun store. He wasn't flipping firearms for profit. He was just selling guns from his personal collection the same way millions of gun owners do every year. But under the new rules, the ATF saw a pattern. Here's why this matters to you. The ATF is actively monitoring online platforms. They're looking at how often you post, what you're selling, how you word your ads. If it looks like you're operating as a dealer, even if you are, you could find yourself under federal investigation. If you're selling firearms online from your personal collection, document everything. Keep records of when you bought them, how long you owned them, why you're selling them. Make it crystal clear these are personal items, not inventory you bought to resell. And remember, some states require background checks for all private sales anyway, even if federal law doesn't. Know your state's rules. John's story isn't over yet. I'm going to tell you what happened to him at the end of this video. But first, 2 more critical changes you need to know about. Let's talk about something that didn't change, but a lot of people think it did. The ATF's frame and receiver rule from 2022 is still fully in effect in 2025. And if you're into building your own firearms, this won't affect you directly. Here's what it means. 80% frames and receivers now require serial numbers and background checks when they're sold commercially. The ATF expanded the definition of what counts as a firearm to include unfinished frames and receivers that are readily convertible into functioning firearms. So if you're thinking you can still order an unfinished Glock frame or an 80% AR lower online and have it shipped to your door with no paperwork, think again. In most cases, those items now have to be shipped to an FFL, serialized, and transferred through a background check, just like a complete firearm. Even parts kits can be classified as firearms if they include certain components that the ATF considers readily convertible. Now, you can still build firearms for personal use. That's still legal. But here's the catch. If you build a gun and then decide to sell it later, that could trigger those engaged in the business requirements we talked about earlier. The bottom line? The days of ordering unserialized frames and receivers with no oversight are basically over. The rule is in effect, it's being enforced, and you need to comply. One more change to cover, and then I'll tell you what happened to John. If you're under 21, or if you know someone who is, listen to this carefully. Enhanced background checks for under 21 buyers purchasing from FFLs are now fully implemented. This came from the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and it adds a whole new layer to the process. Here's what changed. When someone under 21 tries to buy a firearm from a licensed dealer, the background check can take up to 10 business days instead of the usual instant check. During that time, the FBI contacts state and local authorities to dig into juvenile records. They're looking at mental health records and criminal records from ages 16 to 20. Things that might not have shown up in a standard background check before are now being reviewed. The result? Longer wait times and more denials for young adults trying to legally purchase firearms. Now, this only applies to purchases from FFLs. If you're in a state that allows private sales without background checks, and you're buying from a private seller, this rule doesn't apply. But many states have their own restrictions on under 21 firearm purchases anyway. So that's all 5 changes. Pistol braces got more freedom. Everything else, more restrictions, more scrutiny, more ways to accidentally become a felon. Now let me tell you what happened to John. Before we wrap up, let's bust some myths real quick, because there's a lot of bad information floating around. Myth number 1. Private sales are always legal without background checks. Not true. Depends on your state. And it also depends on whether you're engaged in the business under the ATF's new definition. Selling from your personal collection? Usually fine. Selling regularly? You might need an FFL. Myth number 2. I can sell a few guns a year without worrying about FFL requirements. Wrong. There's no safe number anymore. The ATF looks at your intent, how often you're buying and selling, and how you're advertising. 2 sales could get you investigated if it looks like you're dealing. Myth number 3. Pistol braces are completely legal again everywhere. Federal courts reversed the ATF's rule. Yes, but some states still have their own restrictions. Always check state law. Myth number 4. 80% of flowers are still unregulated because they're not firearms. Nope. The ATF's frame and receiver rule treats most of them as firearms now. They need serial numbers and background checks when sold. Myth number 5. If I bought my guns legally, I can sell them however I want. Not quite. How you sell matters just as much as how you bought. Documentation, intent, and frequency all matter under the new rules. Don't let assumptions get you in trouble. The rules changed. You need to know what they are. All right, let's bring this home. What happened to John? The ATF investigated him. They looked at his sales history, his purchase records, his online activity. But here's the key. John didn't get charged. Why? Because he was able to prove that those guns were from his personal collection. He had receipts showing he bought them years apart, not recently with the intent to flip them. He demonstrated that he used them personally and only sold them because he didn't shoot them anymore. But it was close. If he had bought those guns within a few months of selling them, or if he couldn't document his intent, the outcome could have been very different. He got lucky. Not everyone does. So here's your quick recap of the 5 ATF changes in 2025. 1. Pistol brace rule was struck down by federal courts, and the DOJ dropped its appeal in 2025. Check your state laws though. 2. Engaged in the business definition dramatically expanded. Casual sales can cross the line. 3. Online sales are being actively monitored. Document everything. 4. 80% frames and receivers are still regulated as firearms. No more easy ordering. 5. Under 21 buyers face enhanced background checks. Longer waits, more scrutiny. If this video saved you from making a costly mistake, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates. Gun laws are changing constantly, and you need to stay informed. Drop a comment and let me know which of these 5 changes surprised you most. I read every comment, and I want to hear from you. Next video, I'm covering exactly how to legally sell your personal firearms in 2025 without ending up on the ATF's radar. You're going to want to watch that. Everything I've covered today is educational. ATF rules are complex, state laws vary, and your situation is unique. Always consult a qualified firearms attorney before making any decisions about buying, selling, or building firearms. Don't let a rule change you didn't know about cost you your freedom. Stay informed, stay legal, stay armed. I'm David. I'll see you in the next one.